Racing Championship, and this time around we head to Imola. One of the most famous Italian racetracks here, right next to Monza. I am Connery Maddock, and I'm joined by Justin Prince for this evening's broadcast. Welcome, 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 everyone, to the two races that we have in store here today. And of course, the big story so far this championship is that Lassebach leads the championship, and by quite a margin as well. 125 points over second place at this moment in time. And today, Justin, he'll look to try and extend that even further.
Absolutely. He's been the driver to beat all championship long, and this is a track where he topped the board in pre-qualification. But remember, you got Mikael Gard that's also been competitive this season. In second of the standings, Martin Christensen, Andreas Joachimsen, and Marcus Jensen, who are all looking to battle today to try and gain up on that points advantage. They've gone in top fives much of the round so far. The question is, can they get into victory lane?
And if we remember back to the previous race at Suzuka, especially, where we saw Lassebach just stamp his authority on the entire race. He seems completely untouchable at this racetrack, at that racetrack in particular. Do you think that's going to be the same here today at Imola with how the lap times have filed through, or are we going to see someone different right at the top of the timing screens?
Well, it's going to be interesting. First off, it depends on how he does in qualification for the races, but he's been one of the fastest drivers this entire week at this circuit. But the second thing to keep an eye on as well is, can he keep himself composed as this race continues? We've seen how things have gone so far at Monza, Montreal, and Suzuka, and he was really on the mark at Suzuka, 100% all race long. It might be difficult to stop him today, already up by 0.4 of a second in practice.
Yeah, he's going very, very well indeed. And there is your championship leader, Lassebach, as part of the RS competition team. Currently on maybe a little bit of an outlap there as he lets a couple of cars by. These guys still have around about 7 minutes of practice left. So, and that practice is actually really important here, Justin. It's not like some other series where these guys have been practicing for weeks and weeks before this race. They didn't know that we were racing at Imola until very, very late. So the more practice that they can get in, even if it's 7 minutes worth, the better.
Absolutely, to make sure you get your marks down, make sure you know where can you push the limit, where can you test the confidence, and where you end up potentially, say, being the 0.29 in the tire barriers. So it's to make sure, just in case, you get everything all together for today's race, a track climatization, if you will, as you look at the practice time so far before we get ready for qualifying.
Yep, you can see that the second fastest man is Martin Christensen at the moment, just 1/10 of a second behind your championship leader of Lassebach, who did a 140.8 flat. And we can see that Joachimsen is not too far away. That's Andreas Joachimsen as well. He's about another 1/10 of a second back. You see Jorgensen putting in a decent time here in practice as well. But then after that point, there's a big gap between P4 and P5, and P5 just so happens to be Mikael Gard, who's currently second place in the championship. So he's got to be hoping that, well, he nails a couple of laps here at the end of the practice to give him that confidence into qualifying, because right now he'll just be starting on the edge of the top 5.
Yeah, indeed. You're looking at him right now, and you can tell kind of who's comfortable with the track and who's not based on how deep they're able to send it into the lines, as well as where and how close they are doing those lines right now. Like right now, it's like losing a bit of time, for example, trying to run along those curbs. It's about testing the balance of the racetrack, and right now for Mikael Gard, I think he's just trying to get things used to everything. It is a hot racetrack today, 115 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, 79 degrees the air temp for comparison's sake. So it is fairly hot to try and get the grip levels down, and I think he's just trying to keep it safe.
Yeah, we can see we've ridden on board with Gard for the first sector here, and now we climb up to one of the highest point on the racetrack, and one of the fastest corners as well. That is going to be Piratella, and then you start descending into the compression of Aqua Minerale here. Such a difficult sequence of corners to get absolutely perfect, and Well, especially if you step a foot out of line coming through the middle of that complex and beat yourself over the curb, that can very much upset the car. And then coming towards the start of the final sector, Variante Alta, big old curbs here as you launch that car over both of them and take a healthy amount of exit runoff there coming out of the chicane. And then down the hill once again to the final two corners. The two Ravazzas. First one, drag that car in. Absolutely simple there for Mikael Gard. Runs wide just a little bit, but it allows you to do so there. And then final corner, make sure you get a good exit out of here. Carry all of that speed coming down the pit straight. And across the line, Mikael Gard will go here in practice. A 1:41.475 there. Not the most ideal of lap times, but it's not too far away from his best lap in the session so far. So he's steadily trying to work at this, but right now it's the back and Christensen show right at the front.
Indeed, at the moment. And one of the main things as well to remember with this track, some similar characteristics compared to Monza, but very different at the same time. More technical sections on this racetrack, and in my opinion, more danger zones. The run to Minerali, for example, the run in from the end of the front straightaway, as well as into Rivianza at the moment, are the most dangerous portions of this racetrack for today, as well as the best passing zones, because there's been many a race where we've seen incidents happen at the corner apex to entry where it ends up bottoming the field. Could be interesting if we see some of those drivers have to dodge some drivers in those sectors.
Yeah, you do have to be very, very careful here at Imola. It's not a lot of room to work with. It is really a classic track where, you know, some parts of it can be very, very narrow, especially coming through the first sector where it's basically only a single line through both S's sections, through Tamburello, through Villeneuve as well. So, you know, you had to get a bit cozy there if you're going to go side by side coming through this particular sequence. But we're riding on board, though, with Andreas Joachimsen as part of Ronin Simsport. And Ronin has had a decent run recently, especially in the 24 Hours Esports series, where they've come away with a couple of good finishes. And even in these sorts of solo events where the drivers are all on their own, it looks like Joachimsen's going well.
Yeah, Ronin Simsports look very impressive this season, to say the very least. And you can say the same thing about Joachimsen in terms of performance. Top 5 in the championship standings, has been a staple inside the top 5 for a majority of the races each and every single round. It's about continuing up that momentum, though. That's the main thing, because there's still a few more races to go on the calendar, and he's still at this point having to close up about 300-point deficit to the championship leader.
Yeah, so, you know, baby steps, though. We're still inside that first half of the championship, so plenty of time to work with, and plenty of races to go before we crown a champion here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. But we've got a minute to go left here in the first practice session, and Andreas Joachimsen, he comes out the final corner. Currently a lap time good enough for P number 3 at the moment, and it's going to be the run to the line for him. Gonna come across with a 1:41.604. So there we go. That's not going to be an improvement, but as long as you can get that consistency down in terms of a race pace, then it's not too much of a problem.
Yeah, and I'm thinking at this point, when the race gets underway, still with some of the long straightaways, similar to what we see at a track like, say, Monza, it's going to be important that you hit those technical corners right again to make sure you can stay in the draft of the driver ahead, because it seems in terms of the practice times, they've been about 4 to 6 tenths quicker if you have somebody in front of you for those sections compared to, say, running on your own. So that is going to be one of the main things I think we see importance of when race number 1 gets underway for these drivers, and could mean, to keep up with laissez back, you're going to need good track position for when qualifying gets underway.
There we go. So time will expire in just a couple of seconds time, and that will be the end of practice here in Imola. And as well, you can see the practice results up on screen for you now. Laissez back with that 1:40.8 right at the top of the field. And it's Martin Christensen, Andreas Joachimsen bringing things down to P3. Jorgensen, Gard, Basterson, Jensen down to P7. Tondegard and Matthias Jensen in P6. 8, 10, 9, respectively in the first, which will round out the top 10. But as the rest of those names in the practice results cycle themselves through, we get ourselves to the start of qualifying. It's, of course, 10 minutes to be able to get your laps done here, but you know, that's, you know, you're still very much limited in terms of what you can do here in qualifying. It's very, very demanding here to try and set the grid for that race one, but you just got to do what you have to do. Drivers already out there to get their outlaps done.
And you want to keep the tires nice and cool still to make sure you're all set to go to exit the final corners and get that run into 17 and down to the start and finish line, to say the very least. Should note the track temp is slowly creeping down a little bit, which means that will help some of these drivers, but you don't want to cook up the tires before you even get to the start of the qualifying lap. You don't want to go too hard. Some drivers going only 78 miles an hour, some of them going 120 plus.
Yeah, of course, these cars still on the older tire model here in iRacing, so the tires work better the slightly cooler they are, which is why you're not seeing a lot of warming of the tires here on these out laps. As Lasse back, you can see the championship leader at the moment for RS competition, just taking it slow, taking it easy. You don't want to overwork the tires here on this out lap. And you just want to keep them as cool as possible and then go 110% when it comes to that flying lap. So back heading his way towards the final couple of corners right now. And just in a couple of moments' time, he'll start his flying lap. And, well, he's classically been pretty good here in qualifying. I don't see why that's going to change here today. Out the final corner, and then he comes across the line to start that flying lap.
Have to see what the pace is on these first couple laps for some of these drivers here. It should be similar to what we've seen in practice from the drivers inside the top 10 who might have not had the help of draft. But taking the curves nice and gently, not taking them too aggressively where you risk hitting the front bumpers along those turtles. He's just able to get a good launch that time, a good sector one.
Yeah, very good sector. Well, decent sector one. I wouldn't say it's very good just yet. We don't quite have the sector times up as Lasse back on the brakes, then in towards Tosa, dragging that car in, and perfect apex taken, perfect exit taken as well. So it's been a very, very clean lap so far from Lasse back. And now in towards Piratella. Sam on the anchors into there. He's keeping this very, very tidy indeed. And, well, sometimes that really does pay dividends. You don't have to be, you know, going aggressive every single corner to try and extract the most lap times. As long as it's smooth, then lap time can come from that as well.
Exactly. You don't want to end up going where you're not able to get any sort of consistency in terms of lap times, because that will end up in turn hurting you. It was described by some team owners as this, where you want to be able to hit X time, X time, X time, then go to Y time, Y time, Y time. What I mean by that is you want to go and have the fall off, if there's any, in a race situation specifically, nice and smoothly. If it's all over the place those times, that's not going to help you or anyone in terms of helping prepare a race car and or having speed. A 141.2, that is 0.3 quicker than Martin Christensen.
Yeah, a brilliant lap time indeed, as you see those first sets of lap times come through. And, well, Christensen, like I said, 2.5 tenths of a second behind everyone else, quite far off the mark as far as Lasse back is concerned. You see Jensen heading his way through to get himself P3 at the moment. That's Matthias Jensen in the 072 car. And, of course, Magnus Vassersen setting a good lap time as well. Up into P4 on the grid for him. But, again, there's this big separation between your top four and the rest of the field.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to say the very least to start off this qualifying session. I'm curious to see if some of the drivers pick up the pace on lap number 2. But again, as we've seen, a majority of the time it's been quicker on lap 1 in the qualifying sessions. So it's going to be curious. Drivers like Jorgensen, remember, were pushing very hard. That time hit the curbs really hard, lost some time off the corner.
Yeah, that's going to lose him a little bit of time, exactly as you said. But Jorgensen now down into the final couple of corners of the lap. Looking to... Oh, look at that. Look how much exit he's taken out the first Ravazza there. 2 tires into the grass. You got to be careful here. A single instant point will invalidate your lap time here in iRacing. But Jorgensen now looking to head his way across the line. What lap time is it? It's a 1:42.022 there. Good enough to get inside the top 5 here to start race number 1. But that could have been so much better, especially with those little errors coming through some of those corners there, especially running wide out of the first Ravazza.
Absolutely. As should note, a couple drivers have picked up an extra couple tenths on their second lap so far in this qualifying session. But some of the others, I think, waited to see what the track conditions are going to be. It is slowly but surely cooling down with the help of some of the clouds across the racetrack. But should note, Jorgensen needs to nail his marks on the second lap. His first lap invalidated.
Yeah, so he doesn't have that anchor lap. He doesn't have that insurance policy to fall back on just in case this second flying lap doesn't work out. So it's really do or die here for Andreas Jorgensen into the final couple of corners. You gotta be careful not to have this second lap invalidated as well, but he stays within the bounds of the racetrack, coming through those final 2 corners, and now it's a final drive to the line for Andreas Jorgensen. Looks like a decent lap so far. It's a 1:41.789, which is good enough to put him into P6 for now. We also saw Martin Christiansen actually improve his lap time compared to Lasse back, but it seems like it's going to be the same as in practice, in that he's just that 10th of a second behind.
He was actually in the mid-pack, was double-checking this in pre-qualifying, so some tracks may not fit the standards, wrong term, fit the strengths, I should rather say, as some of the drivers on this racetrack. Mikael Gaard going to have to complete a second lap since he had his first one invalidated. Just seems to be more towards the edge of the top 10 this week rather than what we usually see him in the top 5.
Yeah, and well, we'll just have to see if that changes. Mikael Gaard is part of Prolog React Esports, leaving it until very late here to get himself a lap time set. Just over 2 minutes left in the session here, and Gaard still hasn't put a lap time down, so he's in a little bit of an awkward situation here as well inside that Ferrari as he heads himself through Tosa. It's been a pretty clean lap so far from the driver that's second in the championship right now. Up towards Piratella then, that very fast left-hander, and then next objective is the Aqua Minerale down into here. It's basically a triple apex corner if you include that left-hand one right at the end there. And now your next braking zone is going to be into the Variante Alta. Perhaps one of the biggest braking zones of this lap and one of the slower sections as well. But Mikael Gaard is able to take that quite admirably right now as he heads himself to that final sector. As I said, it's been a pretty clean lap from him so far, but he needs to be so much more if he's going to get anywhere near Lasse back here at this stage. As back, 10th of a second advantage over everyone else. Is this the wonder lap that Mikael Gaard needs to be even close here to your current provisional pole sitter across the line? 1:41.459 there for Mikael Gaard. It's a good lap. It brings him onto the second row of the grid, Justin.
Stellar qualifying lap to get himself the good track position. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do once the green flag flies, but just a couple seconds left in the session for some of the drivers to up their times and or get some warm-ups in. Right now, the 065 of Marcus Jensen looking to try and improve his time. He's a 10th back of Mikael Gaard and 2/10 back a second.
Yep, he is. So last-ditch effort here. 20 seconds left remaining in the session, and well, he had... Well, I'm just going to hold off on saying he has enough time here because he might not. 10 seconds into the penultimate corner. It's going to be very, very close here for Marcus Jensen to be able to get this lap time in, and I don't think he is going to make it, especially with a mistake coming through the final corner. So Marcus Jensen won't be able to improve on his qualifying time. He'll have to start P4 here today. We get ourselves switched over to that race session, and this is how the starting grid looks here for race 1 here at Imola in the Danish Esport Racing Championship. Lasse back, confident as ever. Pole position for him. Martin Christiansen joins him on that front row. Mikael Gard and Marcus Jensen will comprise row number 2 here today. Row number 3, Matthias Jensen. We've got Magnus Vasterson down in P6 as well. Andreas Joachimsen, Nick Madsen, P7, P8 respectively. Fredrik Jorgensen and Kasper Stolze will round out your top 10 here, Justin.
Thomas Hersen starts in 11th, Stefan Overgaard in 12th position with Martin Bertelsen in the 13th spot. Matthias Woodshow starts in 14th with a 1:42.1 with Miguel Sondergaard in 15th. Stefan Muller starts in 16th with Jakob Peterson in 17th. Ole Oster starts in the 18th position today in front of Andreas Morch and Dali Jankovic.
Anton Gulish starts P21, Nielsen in P22, Mathiasen in P23, Brinkback P24 here in this race. Peter Bollingtoft in P25, Nicholas Bollingtoft P26, so it's an all Bollingtoft row 13 as Jacob Kritzborg P27, Christian Eriksson in P28. And those are the last two drivers. Christian Ho and Peter Hartvig rounds out your 30-car grid here today. That stellar timing as we're about to get this race started here. Green flag here at Imola in the Danish Esport Racing Championship. Lasse back, not the greatest of starts as Martin Christiansen is able to duel with him side by side in towards Tamburello for the first time. Christiansen around the outside. What a stellar move to start this race from Christiansen. He leads this race coming through the first sector.
Lasse back had a ton of wheel spin to start off this race. Opened up the door for Christiansen to just take that preferred line away and give him a bit of the squeeze. Now, it's the matter of can he try and pull away, because back does have a slight bit of aero damage as everybody else has gotten through cleanly just about so far.
Just about, and what an amazing move from Martin Christiansen to wrestle the race lead away. And now we definitely have a race on here in race number 1. As you can see, a little bit of side-by-side in the back of the shot there. I believe this is in and around Nick Madsen. And you've got Jorgensen also involved in this as well. You've got Thomas Hiresen going side-by-side there with Stolzer, I believe, heading their way up through the exit of Aqua Minerale. You see that Hiresen gonna have to be single file coming through. There's a car that's just gone a little bit wide. That's one of the Kinetic Racing cars. That's Stefan Overgaard has made a bit of a mistake through Variante Alta, but he's kept out of the way of everyone here. But he needs to find some way to file back in line here, otherwise he's just gonna get steamrolled.
Yeah, might be able to find a hole right here, able to find that exact space, but lost Overgaard a ton of spots already. 4 positions lost on the opening lap of this race. An estimated 15 to go, but the fights are on throughout the field here. 5th already side by side.
Yep, they are. Andreas Joachimsen, Matthias Jensen here as the 017, the 072 car had a little bit of an altercation, a little bit of a scrap in towards turn number 1, but Joachimsen comes away with a top 5 position at the moment as a lot of fair battling here in the early stages of this race. You can see the positions gained and lost on the left-hand side. You see Christiansen with that amazing move into turn 1, taking the race lead away. You see Joachimsen also up 1 position, Hiresen up 1, you see Bilson up 1 as well. So, you know, it's slight changes here inside your top 12, but it seems like everyone's gotten away cleanly here at the very front of the field.
It's craziness, though, at the back end of the field. You might notice some of the drivers losing a ton of time. Soltz just had to pull into the garage area for the time being because he got some contact heading into Villeneuve. In fact, getting slammed against the outside wall in a massive crash.
That is a huge incident there. We didn't quite see how that one started, but hopefully we can wind things back a little bit further. Slowdown penalty for one car there. There was another one that went very quick through that one, not really lifting here. You can see as that car trying to serve a slowdown penalty, it just causes confusion behind just as everyone tries to dart out the way. It's that awkward situation, Justin, where one car avoids a slow-moving car, but then everyone else behind just has to react to that, and the reaction times just need to get faster and faster the further back you go, because you're just not going to see what's coming.
Yeah, it just looked like an absolute stack-up, to say the very least, to cause that situation. But now the fight is on for the race lead. Remember, Back had that weak start, looking to try and make up for it right now. He's still got a decent amount of time, and he looks like he's a bit more smooth, or a bit more pushing is Christensen at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like you can see 2.5 tenths of a second between these two drivers right now. Christensen, he needs to put up an excellent defensive performance here for around about 20 minutes to try and keep Lasseback behind him, as Lasseback seems to have had the best of him in the vast majority of the sessions that we've had so far. But Christensen's given himself the best chance here to win this race, but it's gonna be hard work from this point forward.
Yeah, it's going to take the matter of timing right now and getting the launch off the corner, as you talked about in the pre-race. It's just a matter of keeping within that draft, though. Keep inside the slipstream to keep within range of Christensen, because right now the lap times, 3 tenths quicker was Lasseback last time by, and this is his best section of the track. Able to get some nice smooth corners here, and Christensen lost the back end.
Yeah, he's going to lose a little bit of speed on the exit of the final corner, and that's probably the worst place where you can lose speed, because you're going to be at that deficit here all the way down the pit straight, and Lasseback is trying to find a line. Where does he strike? Looks like it's going to be the outside here in towards turn number 1. Lasseback trying to find a line out there, has to drop back behind, so that move defended by Martin Christensen, preferring to take that inside line, forcing Lasseback to go the long way around. But Lasseback unsuccessful that time around, and these guys do have to be careful, because you can see there's a Rolag React Esports car not too far behind. Look at the dive though from Lasseback. Oh my word, he forces the issue into Tosa. It's going to be side by side for the race lead on the climb up the hill, but towards Piratella. And it's going to be Lasseback on the inside line for this particular corner. Has he gained a position? He gets a snap on the exit of the corner. Christensen comes back at him. The dueling here is stellar between these two. And now Mikael Gard looks to try and make an impact. Christensen pushed slightly wide there, coming out of Aqua Minerale. He's slow off the corner. They'll continue the battle in towards Variante Alta. It's so tough to go too wide through here. There's no contact. Christensen again has to push wide, and you can just see there's multiple parties getting themselves involved. Gard forces his way through. Andreas Joachimsen as well now looking to try to join the party. We are almost 3 wide into the final couple of corners. Look at this. Christensen inside, almost 3 wide through the final corner. What is this ridiculousness, Justin?
It looks like everyone's just seeing opportunities and saying, you know what? I want to take this lead right now. We've seen many different times here on RaceSpot TV at races at this racetrack, Connery. Drivers try and risk it in Tosa, but already side by side, 2 rows deep for second and third, respectively. Second and fourth, rather. Oh!
Gard's going for the race lead. Lasseback's been off the circuit. I think that was helped by a little bit of contact. He drops back through the field. Mikael Gard still leads this race in that blue Prolag React Esports car, but you see Jensen, you see Christensen looking to try and get themselves by. Marcus Jensen now leads this race. It seems like no one wants to lead this thing.
Back-headed turtle, that's why he launched so much off into the Tamburello second part of that chicane. And now he's going to have to try and gain the spots again. This is the craziest battle for the lead we've seen all so far.
Yeah, Gard has actually been DQ'd, it looks like. He's somehow gone over the instant limit perhaps here, as we'll have to see what has happened there. Get confirmation from the stewards, but that's a huge amount of points lost regardless for Mikael Gard. Second place in the championship, but this race lead, it's all to play for. Look at the train that's scattered behind them right now. We've still got potentially 17 minutes left of this to go. Marcus Jensen, though, man, he gained a lot out of all that confusion.
Yeah, he just took advantage of a tough situation, to say the very least, but now he's in a tough situation himself where he's going to have to potentially look in his back mirror and potentially have to defend once again. Everyone's shown they are not afraid to be overly aggressive in this race today, and while that fresh air can help a little bit, that draft from behind just allows everyone to just pull on in by the entrance of 2 and 3.
It does. The draft keeps everyone close together coming into the Tamburello corner. As you can see, slightly messed up line there for Marcus Jensen. And now Christiansen looks to try and find the line through. Forces Jensen to go defensive into Villeneuve. Forces Christiansen maybe to try the long way around, but no, he just darts back in line. We're on board with Joachimsen right now in the 017. There's contact into Tosa. That's Christiansen spun back around, collecting so many drivers behind as well. A lot of cars have damage now, and that was eventually maybe always going to happen with how close these drivers are. You could just see basically all three cars behind your race leader deciding to go for the same move into Tosa, and that was never gonna work.
Yeah, just Christensen tried to send it very late. Joachimsen tried to send it very late underneath Christensen, and it just became a stack up in the braking zone. That's just the aggressiveness we've been seeing in this race so far. We see at Tosa specifically one of the tough 4 places to try and make the pass because of how much risk there is for contact, and the fact you have to dive it in so late to try and get the pass done, then take away the preferred line into turn number 8. But now that's separated out the lead a little bit, while the driver of Christensen going to have to deal with having no hood on his race car.
Lasse back is under threat as well. Nick Madsen had a little bit of a look on him coming through those final 2 corners, but yeah, you can see no hood on that car. Not exactly going to be helping the aerodynamic performance of that Ferrari. Here comes Lasse back though, looking to try and get himself a little bit higher on this podium. He seems to have been involved in pretty much everything so far this race, since the very start as well. We've got 14 minutes to go. Current order at the front, it's Marcus Jensen, Andreas Joachimsen, Lasse Back, Nick Madsen, Fredrik Jorgensen as your top 5. And that's a big old shuffle since the very start of this race due to the amount of mad racing that we've had, and of course a couple of bits of contact.
Yeah, this is the craziest race we've seen so far and in any round so far this season for the lead specifically, but all of that shuffling has seen Joachimsen go all the way back to the 10th position, and he's going to be hurting aerodynamically the rest of this way. Got contact on both ends of the race car compared to the others up at the front who have cleaner race cars. So it's going to be curious to see, can Marcus Jensen try and pull away, or will Joachimsen and Back reel him back in still with an estimated 9 to go?
Yeah, Madsen has got a 1.5 second gap to overcome here. He's in a little bit of no man's land. He's in a little bit of breathing room all on his own right now because it's 1.5 seconds to Lasse Back, but behind to Jorgensen it's around about the same, more like 1.7, 1.8 seconds back to them. So he has a bit of breathing room to work with where he can get his own clean laps in, but what he'd love is to try and latch into the toe of your leading 3 cars.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty difficult since they've already pulled away by nearly 2 seconds. They're going to have to hope, he's going to have to hope specifically rather, that they fight. And if they go side by side for an extended period of time, that might be just enough to get Madsen into the draft of some of these cars. Also might have to get some help from, say, Jorgensen and Thomas Hirson, who is already up inside the top 6, to see can they work together to reel in the top 3 positions.
Yeah, we see Jorgensen and Hirson coming through first sector, or the end of the first sector into the second sector. As through the hairpin, the left-hand hairpin of Tosa they go. 3.5 tenths of a second between these two drivers at this moment in time, and a bit of a gaggle of cars behind them as well. The mid-pack hasn't really separated out here in race number 1. So still all to play for when it comes to those positions, that's for certain. And it might be for P number 2 as well, as Lasseback gaining yet more ground over Joachimsen. Very close into the braking zone of Variante Alta, just keeping himself an obvious threat here is Lasseback. They both run a little bit wide coming through that chicane, but not going to be too big of a problem for either of them right now. Into that final corner, and Lasseback just trying to look to set up the move at the moment. If he can get a good launch out of the final corner, which he does so actually. So now he can look to try and work his way past. He has the double toe here, but as soon as he steps out of line, then Joachimsen's going to be the only one that has the draft here, because your race leader is still within that margin. So it looks like Lasseback won't have an opportunity this time into Tamburello, but you know, this is just sort of becoming a little bit tense right now, because I know Lasseback has the pace here. It's just a matter of where and when.
I mean, we've seen it before. Lasseback might try and send this up Tosa if he gets a good run out of Villeneuve, because everyone's just been setting it just not close enough quite yet to get a good dive. You've seen the attempt right there. If he was at least a half car length closer, might have been able to take the bottom away and be able to fight on forward for that second position. Instead, now he's going to have to try and time it up again the rest of this racetrack.
It does. Gurtella into the downhill section, downhill braking zone of Aqua Minerale. Lasseback, he still has plenty of time to work with here, around about 10 minutes, which ends up working out around about 5 or 6 laps here. So, you know, it's not going to be a huge concern for him, especially considering his closest championship contender is currently disqualified from this race and won't be scoring many points, if any at all. So he's going to gain a huge advantage here in race 1, at least in terms of those point standings. So, of course, he'd want to maximize that by finishing as high as he can, but even finishing P3 versus P29 is going to be a massive swing.
Absolutely. And that's going to put more pressure on him specifically, as well as really everybody else in this battle for race number 2, to see, can they add more additional stronger points days? Can they try and chip into Lasseback's advantage before we get to the next round of racing action? All those could be important there. A bad Sector 1 this time. Tamburello got nearly hitting the curbs that time, was back.
Yeah, you can see the lost time coming through Sector 1 there. He's dropped back a good couple of car lengths here. He'll gain a little bit of it back coming through Villeneuve, though. As right now, Marcus Jensen's just been managing the gap back to these guys, and he's hoping that Joachimsen and Back fight hard so that he doesn't have to really worry about trying to defend the race lead for the end of this race. But you know, that's just hoping on something completely out of your control at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also at the same time can't just stay content at the same time be like, oh, nothing's going to happen. I'm just happy with second. Anything can happen at this point. In terms of mistakes, in terms of pressure, in terms of any sort of situation, as long as you keep the pressure up, that's a good situation. By the way, just got confirmation Miguel Gard did indeed reach the incident limit. That's why he's already off the racetrack in that first 3 laps or so in that crazy battle.
That was quick, though, because we were only a couple of laps into the race at that point, so he must have been really racking them up in those first couple of laps to be able to reach the instant limit already. So there we go. Top 3 up on screen for you now. Marcus Jensen, Andreas Joachimsen, Lasseback, and Joachimsen's actually done very well over this last lap or two to close the gap to your leader. So now Marcus Jensen.
Oh, hold on a second. Andreas Joachimsen was just given a black flag.
Oh, there's a penalty that will affect here this battle for the race lead. Joachimsen will have to bring that car on towards pit lane. Martin Bertelsen, I got slightly worried there considering the livery of that car is similar to Lasse Bach, but no, it's Martin Bertelsen has had a couple of problems here into turn 1, and he was actually helped around, and oh my word, that's a huge barrel roll there for Mikael Sondergaard. Takes a trip through the gravel, lands on his wheels though, so he can continue, but that was a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just a bad place to try and make the move, and it ends up biting him, to say the very least. That's going to drop him all the way down the running order. Lucky to still try and keep the car going, but that black flag for Joachimsen up in the top 3, big. Remember, he was the car who tried to set it up Tosa, while there was another driver already trying the same exact move in Martin Christensen. That's going to be a stinging situation here.
Yeah, so thing is, does he serve that immediately, or does he, take the sort of cumulative penalty right at the end of the race in terms of the time? We'll just have to see, because right now he's certainly not doing Lasse Bach any favors by being in the way as a car that has a black flag. So we'll just have to see how this one develops, because if he does bring it on towards pit lane, Lasse Bach will have a clear shot at Marcus Jensen. If he does not, though, Lasse Bach has 2 cars to get through.
Exactly right now, and the main thing to remember, Joachimsen doesn't have to serve until 3 laps are on the racetrack. That gets to the essentially the estimated 1 to go. Pardon me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. As Joachimsen still could affect this battle, even though he's not going to finish inside the top 3. He might decide which order these 2 finish, though. The other 2 finish, Marcus Jensen and Lasse Bach. So interesting developments here inside the final 6 minutes of this race. I was going to say 3 cars can win this race, but no, now it is only 2 thanks to the penalty. Jensen and Bach. The gap to Nick Madsen right now between the top 3 stands at around about 3.6 seconds, so he's lost a lot of time here, and he's pretty much on his own at this stage, so he's not going to be fighting with anyone else in this race coming towards the end. Having a look for other close battles, you do have one between Matthias Jensen and Martin Christiansen further back from the field for P7 and P8. So Christiansen on a little bit of a recovery drive here after that incident. You can see no hood to that car, but seemingly still able to run inside the top 10.
That's fairly surprising to me how well he's been able to control that damaged race car at this point. With the aerodynamics at this point, it looks like he's got some momentum. Christensen does. But here comes Joachimsen in.
Yeah, he has to come in, serve that penalty. So now it is only a 2-horse race right at the front of the field as Joachimsen bows out. How far down the field will he fall? He has to get that car stopped in his pit box at all. And of course, would rather not take service here, because if you do, then it's an extra 25 seconds added on the pit stop here with the new iRacing system, and it looks like he might have just done so. So that's a little bit of a mistake there, but we'll just have to take that as a learning experience for Joachimsen, as he's going to be in there for a decent amount of time. He might even I wouldn't see why he would retire the car, but yeah, that looks like he's taken at least a little bit of service there, which is why iRacing has added that time to the pit stop there, even though it was basically just a stop and go.
Yeah, it was talked about by some of the drivers and told by race control, if you have a penalty, make sure to do X, Y, and Z to be sure you are able to serve it without that 25 seconds. That time didn't get to do all of that as he was trying to drive the car in the midst of the lead group. But look what's happening for P9 on back at the moment. Starting to get a little bit shuffly here, coming to the estimated 2 to go signal.
Yeah, we see Pedersen, Jankovic, Vasterson here. So that is P8, P9, P10 looking to have a bit of a battle here towards the end of this race. 2 minutes 50 seconds remaining, and like you said, around about 2 laps here if the timing works out that way around. It's looks like it was a stop and hold, but I'm seeing on the iRacing system that they only said stop and hold 1. But yeah, usually the time is also suggested in terms of that, but we'll just have to work that one out soon. I don't quite have access to the proof test sheet, in fact, so that's maybe a little bit of confusion, but still, battle for the tail end of the top 10 up on screen.
Yeah, all fighting for as many points as they can at this moment, rather, because they're coming to the estimated white flag this time by in terms of the pace. Should note, Lasseback is trying to go for some dives already, trying to set it hard on the braking into Tosa, compared to these drivers entering that sector just about right about now. Curious to see if anyone tries to send anything. No, they do not. Just everyone staying conservative, waiting to the last lap.
Yeah, so I think, you know, coming into the latter stages of this race is when we'll see the fireworks start. Maybe for this mid-pack battle for P8 and back, maybe, just maybe, for the race lead. But Marcus Jensen's done very well so far in that race lead to manage the gap. He's currently sitting 4.5 tenths of a second, up to half a second ahead of Lasseback at the moment. So Marcus Jensen, as part of Team Redline, he's doing all that he needs to do. He comes out of the final corner. This will be the start of the final lap here for your lead lap runners.
Yeah, I don't know if he's quite close enough to make a realistic move unless there's a mistake from Jensen. He's going to have to be picture perfect to make something work. And these drivers are nearly on top of each other still for P9 and 10 at the moment. With how close the runs are getting, that might be an opportunity for a dive in this situation.
Yep, we'll just have to see how much they do stack up in towards turn number 1 here in this battle. As we're riding on board with Magnus Vasterson right now, down in towards turn number 1 they go, and it's not going to be any moves for anyone in this train just yet. Meanwhile, race lead 0.3 of a second. Back has gained a little bit of time here on the start of this final lap, but he needs a huge, basically qualifying lap at this point to be in a position at the very dying moment in the final couple of corners maybe to try and wrestle position away from Marcus Jensen. Jensen just half a lap to try and hang on at this point. A couple more braking zones to go. There's the official call that this is the final lap of the race. Riding on board with Lasseback in that RS competition car. Does he have the legs at the end of this race? 0.3 of a second on the way into the penultimate corner. It has to be no mistakes at this point for Jensen, and he'll be able to take race number 1 here in the Danish Esport Racing Championship. Lasseback, try as he might at the very end, it's all Team Redline in race 1 as Marcus Jensen takes the race win.
Heck of a run by him, heck of a move to get himself to the lead in the first place. And man, oh man, if you're Lasseback, you're thinking, I needed one more lap maybe to get the move done for that position. But Christensen able to make it to the line in 6th without a hood. Well, all of the drivers we've seen from 8th on back staying line astern for 8th, 9th, and 10th, all the way back to the following positions up to the racing line.
Yeah, and you can see those final couple of runners heading their way across the line. What a brilliant first race of the evening that we've had here at Imola in the Danish Esport Racing Championship. An absolutely bombastic first half of the race where things could have literally gone either way inside that leading train, but it ends like this. Marcus Jensen wins by 0.3 of a second over Lasseback. Nick Madsen finishes on the podium after a decent performance, avoiding everything that happened in front of him. Thomas Jersen in P4 with Fredrik Jorgensen rounding out the top 5. Martin Christiansen, though, oh, what could have been. Wasn't his fault with that incident in towards Tosa that cycled him back to the field. It was a wondrous move at the start to get to the race lead, but he finishes in P6 for race 1. Matthias Jensen in P7, Jacob Peterson in P8 with Dali Jankovic P9. Magnus Vassen rounds out your top 10 here, Justin.
Jacob Versborg, finishing 11th. A good run for the youngest driver in the field, Anton Golich, up to 12th position, started in 21st. Stefan Overgaard finished in 13th, with Stefan Moller in 14th. Ole Oster finished 15th, with the first of the bowling tops in 16th. Peter Hartwig finished in 17th. He started dead last in the field. Christian Eriksen in 18th, Miguel Sondergaard in 19th, and Mike Matheson rounding out the top 20.
P21 goes to Johnny Nielsen as Martin Bertelsen with the late race penalty finishes further down the order. P25, that hasn't exactly followed through on our timing, but Matthias Woodshow in P22, Jim Brinkback P23, Andreas Joachimsen P24, Christian Ho in P26 there, as Andreas Moch there in P27, Peter Bollingtoff in P28, Mikael Gard, though that's a lot of points lost in his championship hunt. He finishes P29 with that disqualification, and Kasper Stolzer with a first two-lap incident. He finishes in the 30th spot, dead last here today. But that is race 1 over and done with here for this edition of the Danish Esports Racing Championship. But don't go away, because we have qualifying 2 and race 2 just after this. Don't go away.
Vinderen af Danish Esport Racing Championship får chancen for at komme ud og køre i en ægte racerbil på Jyllandsringen. Men det er altså ikke hvilken som helst racerbil. Det er nemlig en Ferrari 488 Challenge-bil. Går du med drømmen om at komme ud og prøve en ægte racerbil, så gå ind på esport-racing.eu og tilmeld dig DERC.
We're halfway through our proceedings here for this edition of the Danish Esports Racing Championship from Imola. What an exciting first race that we've had here today, and if the second race is anything like that, then I will certainly be happy. I'm Conor Maddock. I'm joined by Justin Prince here for the second half of the broadcast, and we've been treated to something special there in that first race.
Yeah, absolutely. Special battle for the race lead. One of the best all season long. And of course, a special race overall in terms of performances by some. We see Jensen find his way to victory lane. Now it becomes the question, how did they do in race number 2? The track conditions, nearly identical as the last race. Now it's the matter of, can you do it one more time before you finish off the round and get to the halfway point of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, it was another decent finish for Lassebach. Not the race wins that he's become used to in this series, but still a fantastic points haul over Mikael Gard. So that is going to be one that he'll absolutely take enthusiastically. But what a race as well from that driver, Marcus Jensen. He goes fastest in practice 2 here, just to show how good he's been. But yeah, he's just he just came alive there in that first race. He just placed his car in all the right places at the right time, and when it came to those final couple of laps, he had the stamina to keep focused and keep position.
Yeah, by far his best points haul, first race win in any of the rounds this season. But he needed to be composed with how that was all shaping up. There was all that side-by-side battling in that mix when he took that lead and just found the right opportunity and just took advantage. Lassebach couldn't get back up in front, even with the help of the draft. Couldn't get close enough to be able to make a realistic dive before the checker flag. So it's the matter, though, of how you do in race number 2 as we get through track climatization for race number 2.
Yeah, drivers will have around about 5 minutes to be able to get used to the how the track it has changed, if it has changed at all. Like you said, track conditions very, very similar here for race number 2. So it shouldn't be a huge adjustment required here for these drivers. You see Mikael Gard setting himself a decent lap time up into P2 here in the practice as well. But with you know, those penalties really affecting the sort of latter part of that race 1, I think it sometimes comes with the territory. You know, sometimes with that sort of side-by-side battling, with that sort of close quarters action, it's going to be a matter of time sometimes where there will be an instant, there will be a little bit of contact, and that's just an occupational hazard that is sometimes involved here in sim racing.
Yeah, you're eventually going to make contact with somebody in terms of battling like that. It was just the timing of the dive, as well as not getting in the binders quick enough, essentially. But I wouldn't be surprised to see drivers like Joachimsen bounce back and quickly in this race, as well as Christensen, to be back at the front and in the conversation to try and win race number 2 and get themselves as many points as they can to make up for race number 1 and their ups and downs.
Yeah, you know, there's ups and downs in a race, there's ups and downs across the season as well. So, you know, even if you have a couple of bad races here, you still got time to recover here as we're, you know, sort of coming up towards halfway through the season right now. And, you know, there's still plenty of opportunities for you to gain that big chunk of points required. You see Mikael Sonnegaard, set a lap time here in practice, as we are just eagerly awaiting qualifying 2 at this stage, because right now there's not all that much you can do here in this second practice session, except for just get out there and run a couple of laps. It's not like that first practice session where you're still getting you know, trying to find speed in places. Right now, you know, you're basically about as fast as you'll be through the rest of this event now.
Exactly. We didn't really see too much fall off, we should note, only to about the 1 minute 42 second range for the lead cars. So these drivers aren't going to be burning up the equipment too badly in terms of time. It's just a matter again of, can you try and fight for position cleanly, effectively, and strategically to take home a victory in this one. And as we talked about in just about every single round for every single race, if you start in the back part of the field, by the time you get by some drivers, you'll lose grip of the lead pack. If you want to be able to get max points, you want to start in the top 10 at the very least to give yourself a shot.
Yeah, that's the thing. You do need to get yourself that decent track position early on, and so you don't have to put in so much work when it comes to the race trying to get through on traffic that might just be that little bit slower than you. Lassebach right now here in practice 2, he hasn't exactly had the best of times, as he's currently, well, he's just been promoted up into P8 here, but he's not exactly out there setting the fastest lap times in the world. As I said, it's slightly less serious yet in the second practice session, but Christiansen does lead it for now from your previous race winner of Marcus Jensen. So just a minute left until qualifying here. What are your expectations here just in for these next two sessions?
My expectations, potential craziness once again for the race lead. And I'm expecting at the very least a good start for the race lead. Remember, there was a lot of tiger spin for Lasse back in race number 1. If he's able to throttle it up well, or whoever starts on the pole throttles it up well, it might be more difficult to get that type of craziness, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm also expecting a lot of drivers to move themselves back into the conversation for the win. Guys like Christensen, like Jensen once again, like Miguel Gard. I want to be surprised to see them all scrapping once again with Lasse back.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic to see. And of course, an important point here in these cars, especially in these GT3 Ferraris, you don't usually, in most real-life series, have a standing start in these cars. So, which is why some drivers tend to struggle just a little bit getting these cars off the starting grid. But those are eventually going to be your practice results. There we go. Martin Christiansen, half a second ahead of Marcus Jensen, Fredrik Jorgensen in that third spot. But practice times do not matter in the grand scheme of things. We're heading into a session where the times do matter. Qualifying 2 is about to get itself started here, and we'll look to try and see where everyone starts for race number 2. Lasse back though, missing out on the race win in race number 1, but a similarly strong performance here in race number 2. It's just going to still do him wonders in terms of his championship performance so far, because you don't need to be winning every single race to win a championship. You just need those consistent finishes inside the top 5 to give yourself a good shot.
Absolutely right now, and I think right now guys like Lasse back might be favorites still for this. Some of the drivers even at the bottom of the practice chart for this session, wouldn't be surprised to see him at the top of the board for qualifying. There's a lot that can happen still. It's all going to come down to how well do you get the start and how well can you defend as this race progresses on. Thing is though, we have to qualify to see how they'll start.
Yep, we will. So, qualifying 2 has started. Drivers are currently on their out laps here. Of course, it's the same deal as qualifying 1. You'll get yourself 2 flying laps here to try and haul yourself up far forward on the starting grid, I suppose. As simple as it gets. 8 minutes left here in the session. There's some drivers coming towards the end of their out laps right now. So the start of the first set of flying laps about to get itself underway. You see, that's the 0.68 of Martin Christiansen coming through the final corner to get his first flying lap started. Started on the front row in race 1, but in position number 2. Now he looks to try and get just that 1 position extra.
Yeah, curious to see if he can do so. He got the top time in the track climatization for this session, but he's taken a line a bit differently compared to what we've seen from Lasse back in qualifying. He's not afraid to run aggressively over the turtles and the curbs. It's a risk, since we've seen before, that can shoot you up the track, but he's not afraid to launch himself across them to try and gain extra time. Well, Lasse back is one of those types of drivers, in comparison's sake, who's been not as close, has just been trying to angle it towards the middle turtle only from what we've seen from Christensen in this lap.
Yeah, you see there's different philosophies in terms of how to tackle this racetrack, but Christiansen seemingly going well at the moment. And a lot of space on entry there taken into Aqua Minerale. I was scared he was going to tag the grass there on the outside, which can spell a disaster for some cars in iRacing, and these GT3 Ferraris can deal with it a little bit better, but it's still not ideal at all. Very wide coming out of Variante Alta. You have to be careful with the off-tracks coming through there, but he continues on. Signals to me he didn't get an off-track there. Otherwise, he would have been able to reset, and he's able to, get another clean out lap and another clean flying lap in. Coming through those final couple of corners then for your driver that started P2 in the previous race. What's it going to be provisionally here inside of qualifying number 2? We have a couple of lap times come through already. We expect Christiansen to go to P number 1 provisionally here. That's a fast lap time as well. That's a 1:40.845. So that is great there from Christiansen. But the thing is, what is the reply from Lasse back? Is he able to get himself provisional pole position or not? We'll just have to see. It's a 1 minute. Well, it's not going to be a lap time there from Lasse back. So not going to get it done here, at least early on in the session. Martin Christiansen provisional pole position with Vasterson currently P2.
That could be a major mistake right there for Lasse back. Remember, he had such a quick lap time on his first time around. He was able to breathe for the second, but he's getting very close to the sand already on this lap. Needs to make sure it is as clean as possible. He's going a little bit harder, actually, than the last qualifying session I've noticed so far on this racetrack to get this extra time.
Yep, Christiansen has made a big statement. And it's up to Lasse back to try and find the response through Piratella, down the hill into Acqua Minerale then. We'll just have to see what back can do. A little bit of a twitch coming through that first apex though. The car seeming a little bit sketchy at this stage. He's able to recover it though. You have to wonder how much marginal time that he's lost by doing that. Very heavy over the first curb. Again, a little bit of a slide on the exit of the second apex. But for Lasse back, he heads himself now towards the very end of his qualifying lap. Entry into the first Ravazza, up onto the curb, 2 tires onto the curb. They're trying to get that car slowed down as much exit out of the first Ravazza as possible to get that good entry into the second Ravazza. Now it's just a drive to the line for Lasse back. What's the time going to be? A 1:40.6 for Lasse back. It's not quite enough to try and dethrone Christiansen.
That's a 0.7. Christiansen with the 6, however, on the second lap. That is similar pace to what we've seen, Connery, from Martin in the first session. Was about 2-3 tenths quicker on his second lap. And now this is going to make it extra interesting, extra tasty up at the front as we look at Marcus Jensen try and record his first lap time.
Yeah, Jensen, of course, you know, he had a very, very good amount of race pace, and now does that translate into qualifying pace here for the second qualifying session? That is the big question. Looks like an okay lap so far across the line. He goes into the 1:41, so it won't be a top 2 start for Marcus Jensen, but it will be second row of the grid. So this is looking to be, you know, setting up to be a rather exciting race number 2 here.
Yeah, and don't forget, you still have Miguel Gardner, who still has to record his first time, along with Stefan Obergarn and some of the contenders. So you have to keep an eye on some of those. That might shake things up as well with the running order. And we've seen a little bit of an earlier run, to say the very least, on this session as some of the other drivers run around this racetrack.
Yeah, we see that, well, right now, there's Lasse back heading his way through Tosa. We see... actually on my screen, Mikael Gard's coming out of the final corner at the moment. He's going to head his way across the line in just a couple of moments' time. A 1:41.1 there for Mikael Gard. He starts inside the top 5, at least provisionally, here today in race number 2. But we've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds left of this session. And, you know, a lot of drivers still yet to set their second qualifying times. Go on, Justin.
Yeah, that was a fishtail we just seen from Miguel Gard. He tried to push so hard out of Tamburello that he nearly spun it off towards the sand. That's going to lose him a lot of time in sector number 1. Already kicking up sand here in sector 2.
Yeah, and so it's not been ideal here for the driver in second place in the championship. Lasse back has actually pulled off the circuit, so... well, he actually keeps going. I think he's trying to cool his tires down as much as possible here for this final lap. That's the desperation, but no, he takes the toe back to pit lane. Lasse back will not improve on his second place qualifying here. You see Mikael Gard heading his way through the middle sector at the moment. It was a decent chunk of time lost coming through that first sector, and well, that's a big launch over the first curve of the Variante Alta as well. So it's not been an ideal lap, and you can just see that he doesn't think that's been an ideal lap either. Brings it to a stop, takes the tow back to pit lane. We still got a minute left here of qualifying, but drivers running out of laps, it seems. And it looks like, unless drivers like Stefan Overgaard can pull off a miracle here, it looks like this will be a starting grid here for race number 1. And Stefan Overgaard, he doesn't have a hood there, at least on well, he hasn't got a hood on my screen either. So he's had a bit of a problem.
He actually had a crash on his first lap. That's why he's running the second one without a hood. And that's not the most optimal qualifying situation. I'm surprised he didn't try and go back into the pit lane and restart at least to get one lap. Got to give it to him. At least he's willing to try and see what the time's going to be in the destroyed race car.
Yeah, the Ferrari with no hood will continue on. As 20 seconds left into Ravazza number 1. It's going to be close to being able to get this one in, and it might be the similar sort of situation that we saw in qualifying 1, where a driver couldn't get back to the start-finish line. It'll be very close here for Stefan Overgaard. 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second as he just reached the line. He does set a lap time, but it won't count as Overgaard has to start at the back of the field. Very close there, right at the end of the session. But here is your starting grid for race number 2. Martin Christiansen, pole position here for this one. Lasse back. He has to do things from P2 now. Marcus Jensen, your previous race winner, starts in 3rd with Fredrik Jorgensen in 4th. P5 will go to Mikael Gard as Magnus Vasterson starts in P6. Anton Gulish in P7 with Matthias Woodsko in P8. Mikael Sondergaard P9, and Nick Madsen rounds out the top 10 on the grid.
Dowling Yankovic starts in 11th spot with Kasper Solze in 12th position. Stefan Moller in 13th with Matthias H. Jensen in 14th. Martin Bertelsen will start in the 15th position alongside Jakob Bach Versborg. Andreas Joachimsen, a big storyline to talk about in this one. He starts in 17th, a 1:41.6 qualifying alongside Nikolaj Bollingtop. Ole Oster and Andreas Morch round out the top 20.
Mika Pedersen, Christian Ho, Peter Hartvig, Christian Eriksson bring things down to 24th. As you look even further back at this point, Peter Bollingtoff, Trim Binkback, Johnny Nielsen, Mike Mathiasen down to P28, and then your final 2 cars here today will line up on that final row in just a couple of moments' time. But minimum 30 seconds left to try and get this race started. It was a brilliant move around the outside last time around by Christiansen into turn 1 to take the race lead away, but the thing is, it's Lasse back this time. That starts on that second grid position. Has to do the same here to gain that early advantage here on the first lap of race number 2. It'll get itself underway. Now, green flag out here for the Danish Esport Racing Championship. It's a good start from your race leader, Lasse back. He's had a mare of a start again here in race 2. It's a mirror image of race number 1 as he struggles to get himself off the line, but he still importantly maintains position. A little bit of side-by-side action in the mid-pack, a little bit further back, but no big incidents into turn number 1 here. On the run down towards Villeneuve then, as you can see your race leaders have gone. No! That's a huge moment there. Martin Christiansen, unforced error from the race lead, slides it out of Villeneuve. He goes to the back.
Hit one of the turtles way too hard with the right rear tire. It just launched him up into the air and just spun him around. Unbelievable mistake from Christensen to start this race. And he's already very loose to the back of the field. He is in 29th position now from that mistake.
Oh, that's so heavy over the sleeping policeman and a heavy amount of contact with the tire barrier as well. That's such a cruel, cruel way for it to happen for Christiansen. It was a brilliant qualifying, a great launch off of the grid, but pinning it out of Villeneuve, that is absolutely horrible for him. It does result, though, in Lassebach leading this race from Marcus Jensen. So a bit of a swap around from the end of race number 1. We also see Jorgensen. Mikael Gard's been able to gain a position as well, and he looks like he's going to be rather close to Jorgensen this time around in towards turn number 1. Mikael Gard is one of those drivers that needs a good finish here in this second race to make up for race number 1. Around the outside into Tamburello he goes over Jorgensen. Can't quite find the line. Very close to tagging the rear end of the Ferrari ahead of him, but he tries to get the exit out of Tamburello, and he does. He angles for a move, maybe shows the nose in towards Villeneuve, but stays in line for now. Mikael Gard, a top 3 finish here. Oh, he almost does the exact same thing as Christiansen did on lap 1. He pushes so wide. Vastersen's been able to work his way through.
Yeah, that time it was with the full right side of the suspension just about. Some of these drivers taking the curves overly aggressively to start off this race compared to race number 1. And in turn, it's losing them tons of position. Should note that Joachimsen, who started in 17th, is already up to 11th position up on the board.
Yeah, he's really working at it right now. And he still has plenty of cars on the menu.
Mistake from second.
Well. Yeah, a little bit of battling for seconds as Jorgensen. He's got himself ahead. Jensen, he's dropping back all the way through the field. Did he have an instant? Did he have a slowdown penalty? We'll just have to see right now, as he's currently under threat from Sondergaard behind. We'll get the replay up on screen. It's coming down in towards Aqua Minerale, and push is very wide, and by going that way around, he might have just got himself a slowdown penalty for cutting that left-hand kink there. So that's a huge tragic moment there from Jensen. So a lot of your fast runners right now having huge problems.
Yeah, some major mistakes in this race have lost some of the biggest points haul drivers. Tons of time here, but Magnus Wason has been able to take advantage to get into the top 5, and taking advantage of the left side of the track is Mikael Gard for the position.
Yeah, Mikael Gard, have to be careful. Sondergaard trying to find the line. Oh, excuse me, that's Vastersen trying to find the line off the corner. Look at the flashing of the lights there from Vastersen. He's made his emotions known, and thinks that Gard is defending perhaps a little bit too aggressively in this situation, but right now you can just see a lot of cars stacked up behind this one in the mid-pack train that we have going here right now. You see Gulis, you see Woodsko as well. Woodsko got a penalty in that previous race. You see behind these guys as well, Jankovic and Madsen, and Madsen down the inside of Jankovic, inside of Piratella. Not usually an overtaking opportunity coming into there, and Madsen will find that one out. He's not able to squeak his way by at all, but just the audacity to go for a move into there, that's very aggressive.
Yeah, a lot of these cars are being aggressive, especially throughout the top 20. There were cars bumping and banging last time by through Villeneuve, for example. They're not afraid to send it seems, so far today here, Connery, where if there's an opening, they're trying to jump through it before it slams shut. A little bit too aggressively, in my opinion, so far.
Yeah, that's the thing, race number 2. You're coming towards the end of the racing evening. Some drivers stepping out of line in terms of their behavior and trying to go for moves that are perhaps not on, and trying to really abuse the track limits in terms of gaining lap time. You can just see a little bit of a show of the nose there from one of those drivers. That's Gulish over Sondergaard. Sondergaard tries to hold on to P number 6 here, but Gulish had a big old look in towards turn number 1, but he hasn't got the pace through Tamburello to be able to keep himself close on the way into the braking zone of Tosa. But it's a bit of a train stacked up behind these guys at the moment, and we'll just have to see how this files through. But just to give you an update though, Lassebach at the front of the field, 3.5 seconds to Jorgensen. He's back, and literally back.
He's more like running away and making sure no one can see his back end at this point, Lassebach, because Everyone's stacking up behind Jorgensen. He's in the 141 threes. Back is running 141 flats. That's got to put a lot of pressure on everybody to say, we got to go. We got to try and keep up with Lasse back because he's already essentially broken the toe of this group.
Ooh, that's close. Nick Madsen having a bit of a battle with Bertelsen now, and looks like there's going to be side-by-side in towards the final corner, but they've come together. A wild, wild ride for Martin Bertelsen into the penultimate corner. Hits the barrier, able to continue on though. But we'll get to see that once again on the replay. You see the side-by-side on the way down into the corner. Is there enough room left by Bertelsen? I'd say no. He might have just cut across the nose slightly there. There's not much that car on the inside could have really done. We'll get a better view from up above. And yeah, that's slightly more cutting across the nose there for Bertelsen.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did there. Just thought, I think the Team Brass car was just going to lift and just came across. Now severe damage on that race car is, again, the youngest driver in the field holding steady in P number 7 so far. A go-kart driver from the Denmark area region, able to get a good start to this race. Had a good qualifying session as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see riding on board with the 018 Racing factory car. Gulish just working his way through at the moment, and to be able to avoid the incidents in and around him so far in this race. And now 7/10 of a second behind Mikael Sondergaard to try and break into that top 6 sort of area. But as things stand right now, the race leader's pretty much gotten away from everyone, pending Lasse back making a mistake. So we're basically seeing a repeat of Suzuka at this point. Gap up to 5 seconds now. That is incredible. Meanwhile, you see this little bit of battling though, because that is Marcus Jensen and Magnus Vastersen getting very close, getting touchy-feely, coming through the last couple of corners. And now you can see Jensen, he has the slipstream on the way in towards turn number 1, but they're not going to go for the hopeful dive just yet, you would have thought. Meanwhile, Mikael Gard going to be showing the nose in towards turn number 1 over the car of Jorgensen. And look at how close he is coming through Tamburello. He's basically rubbing up against that diffuser of the Ferrari ahead. He tries to wrestle the inside away, and does he get the line off the corner? No, not quite, but it's stacked up everyone behind. Marcus Jensen going around the outside of Vastersen, might look to try it around the outside of Gard, coming off the corner there, but Jensen into the grass slightly. That was a bit aggressive, a bit forceful from Gard in terms of trying to defend his position. Jensen wouldn't be happy about that.
Yeah, that's a major squeeze off the racing line, and then some. The thought process for me, though, is he's got to stay on the pavement, right? You're not going to be happy if you get squeezed off of the grass. For Jensen, might be thinking, might have to be a little bit more aggressive now, since Mikael Gard just turned up that knob in that position battle at the moment, and he's not being patient anymore with Jorgensen either. He knows he has to go at this point, really trying to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So things are very much heating up for P number 2 as Lasse back is looking, well, not even in his rearview mirrors right now, because he's too far ahead to see them in his rearview mirrors. He's looking at the timing screens and just laughing at this point, because now he has 7.5 seconds over everyone else in this race. So it's basically this entire train for P2 for the final 15 minutes of this race. And of course now on towards lap number 7 of a potential 15 here. Mikael Gard again showing the nose into the corner. Vastersen's gone a little bit deep as well to make it close, but look, Mikael Gard's been so good through this first sector. Jorgensen's had nothing for him inside of this particular area of the racetrack, but it's not really a place where you can really get past unless you get the good run out of Villeneuve and absolutely send it into Tosa. Speaking of sends, we did see a big show of the nose there for a driver a little bit further back in that field. I believe that was Gulish that had a little look, but as you can see, this is still a big old train for basically the entirety of the top 10 for P2.
Yeah, no one is being patient still with this grouping right now. It's just the fact that no one's gotten the best of runs to actually make the move. And that's why Mikael Gaard at this point has been nearly right in the bumper. We've also seen Sondergaard try and take advantage of mistakes. Jensen having some mistakes this lap to lose some ground. So it's not just a matter of being picture perfect now. It's the matter of trying to time this up. Vastusin having a bad run that time, heading out of Alta.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, you can see that separation that's now inside of this group, and down the inside goes Marcus Jensen then, and oh, that's a bit sketchy into there, and now Sondergaard looks to try and capitalize on this. Side by side through the final corner, they get so close, but they're able to keep it together on the grey stuff. Now, Gulish looks to get himself involved side by side with the red line driver of Jensen in towards turn number 1. They're at an absolute stalemate for now, but will it change once they hit the anchors into the corner? Gulish still has the inside, a bit of door upping coming through the corner, and yet more contact coming off of it, but this is still all fair. And now Matthias Woodsko in the background looks to try and see what he can do in this particular battle. Jensen will hold on, but they've lost time to cars ahead.
Yeah, they lost about 4, 5, 6 car lengths. It was all that bumping and banging, and if you're Jensen, you're thinking, let's just focus on the task at hand and try to reel them back in so we can keep up with the back end of Sodergaard at this point. Otherwise, they're going to waltz on away, so this is not good for Jensen. Everybody else is now slowly reeling in. This is a crazy train of drivers. This race taking very different turns. By the way, there's Joachimsen. He's wanting a top 10.
Oh my word, he's absolutely got the afterburners on at this stage inside of that Ronin Sim Sports car. P11, as you said, looking to get inside the top 10. Brilliant performance so far, but has to fight with Nick Madsen to be able to get that top 10 finish he so desires. But right now, we just have to hope for spectators' sake that this oh, there's a car gone off. That's Mikael Gaard that's had a problem, and Marcus Jensen looks to try to get himself well, close enough, but he wasn't close enough to capitalize, but Sondergaard was, and now Mikael Gaard has been filed back into that P5.
Yeah, he nearly ran at the back of Jorgensen trying to send it in hard, but Jorgensen took a much tighter line on the entrance. That's why he was off in Ravasa. But cars are off and spinning, car in the wall.
Oh my word, Madsen, what has happened there? That's a huge one down into turn number 1, and we'll get to see it on the replay. And we'll just have to see. Oh, that's a big bit of contact into turn 1 and heavy impact with the tire barriers as well. We'll get another look. You see the car behind going for the inside, defended towards the inside, front to rear contact. And that is unfortunate there for Mikael Gaard, as that was Andreas Joachimsen, I believe. As, yeah, a bit too deep on the brakes there. You saw the move be defended, but you know, sometimes the front to rear contacts there, it's kind of obvious who's the book.
Yeah, right there. Madsen trying to take that offensive line, as you mentioned. Just, you need to be smarter on the brakes in that type of a situation. My goodness is all I can really say. Unfortunate there for Madsen, who is turtling across the racetrack. By the way, P7 is still heating up a little bit. It's still the 073 chasing 018 machine.
Gulish, oh, looks very close into those final 2 corners. We've got Ali Yankovic also in the background on the outside looking into this battle. He has the double toe of those 2 cars ahead. But these guys have separated from the rest of the top 10 train. It's about 1.9 seconds to Marcus Jensen, and here comes Woodsko, around the outside into Tamburello for the first part of it. Not going to find much progress around there. Gulish is able to hold on. You know, that move is very much possible, and we've seen it pulled off before, but it requires a big old commitment there.
Yeah, it just didn't look like there was quite that amount. Quite yet, rather, at this point. There is a bit of commitment, though, to some of the drivers sending it to Tosa, and a couple of them nearly got a bit of wheel hop and near contact. That was Matthias Jensen, who had a bit of a bobble.
Yeah, he had a bit of a scary moment in terms of trying to keep hold of that car and not make contact with anyone. Meanwhile, Mikael Gard on Sondergaard in towards Aqua Minerale. That was pretty close on my view of things. And now it looks like Jensen, look at the speed he's got off the corner. He might be able to challenge here in towards the Variante Alta. A bit of contact, and that's Jensen having to fall back behind. But oh my word, Mikael Gard's just getting involved in everything right now. And meanwhile, P2, because that battle's going on, Magnus Varsson looking to try and haul himself up onto the second step of the podium, looking for the cutback, coming through that first Ravazza, but not going to be successful. He's still got a decent exit off the final corner here, so can still maybe have that big old challenge in towards turn number 1 this time around. Lap 11 of a potential 15 here, depending on how the time works out around the outside for that jet black car. And it's just going to be a show of the nose rather than a serious move. He took a huge amount of curb as well, so he has to be very, very careful. We've seen how those curbs can kill cars in the first couple of laps of this race.
Indeed, right now, and some of these drivers being more timid since then, to say the very least. But keep an eye on Tosa again to see if anyone tries to send it. This has been really the most aggressive part of the racetrack today for drivers to try and make moves. Just no one close enough to make a dive. Now, Vassen, I think, is a bit faster at this moment. The thing is, Jorgensen is better in Sector 2, it seems, to be able to keep defending.
That seems to be the case, as this is definitely the closest battle that we have out there on circuit. Lasseback has 12 seconds on these guys, by the way. Just to remind you, he's just off in a distance. He's basically in a different universe at this point, so that is just going to be a thing, and another race win potentially in the bag for your championship leader, as he's going to get a fantastic points haul here today if he's able to get to the end. But for P2, though, it could be any one of these cars in this train right now, given the right set of circumstances for each of them. 6.5 minutes left to go. Not much development in terms of this particular lap, but you know, everything can change with just one attempted move, and then everyone else get behind, getting a little bit more greedy, looking to try and capitalize, and then we might have a situation like we saw at the start of race number 1. Vassarson again looking around the outside. It forces Jorgensen to go defensive each time in towards Tamburello, which does compromise his line coming through the rest of the corners in that sector. So it's a lot more than just showing the nose here for Vassarson. He's basically putting Jorgensen into an uncomfortable situation, as meanwhile you see Mikael Gard get very, very close to the back of Sondergaard in towards the entry for Tosa. He's gonna try and find a little bit of a cutback, try and find the traction off the corner. This is the battle in the back of your shot right now as they head their way in towards Piratella, but they have to file back in line, although with a little bit of lost time. But to return to my point here, Justin, I like what Vassarsson's doing in towards turn number 1. He's making Jorgensen uncomfortable. Jorgensen's been dealing well with it so far, but at some point drivers do crack.
Yeah, I've been liking that as well, to see how it's been doing. We have a car around, though, in the Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, that's an incident, and it's one with Joachimsen, I believe. There's definitely a Ronin Simsport car involved, as these guys had been pretty close over the last couple of laps, and this time around the chrome horn being used, and Gulish goes for a bit of a ride. Currently he's in P11, though, ahead of a good couple of cars, but right now, with 4.5 minutes to go, we're sort of in that little bit of a lull before those maybe frantic final lap here, as Vassarson not going to be that close into turn 1 over P2 this time around. Didn't get as good of an exit this time as he has done previously, which you know, is going to rid him of another overtaking opportunities, and there's not many coming towards the end of the race now.
Yeah, right now these drivers, I think for the most part, are just waiting for a mistake. They haven't been able to get too close. But to get back to the question you had before in terms of turn 1, or sector 1 rather, with Tamburello, I've been liking that portion of the racetrack as well, because I think he's been trying to set it up, Vasson, to try and go for the cross out of turn 4 specifically. The problem is he's just not been able to get to the left side of the track to time it up to try and make a move towards Villeneuve. If he can get that done and get to the inside, the left side rather, of Jorgensen, he might be able to do something in that part of the racetrack. That's where he's been timing up his moves every single time to apply that pressure you were mentioning.
Yeah, and now he's basically all alone. He's not really got all that much pressure from behind, but if he botches this overtake, then Sondergaard is still there, ready and waiting to try and capitalize. So he's still got to make this clean, lest he gets past or at least threatened from behind. But 3 minutes left to go now into those final couple of corners. Start of the penultimate lap here. Oh, you can see Jorgensen, car unstable, coming off the corner. Will give a slight run here to Magnus Vasserson on the way in towards turn number 1. This is a good opportunity. This is his best opportunity that he's had yet. But outside line in towards turn number 1. Once again attempted here, but Jorgensen just has enough room to work with. They're absolutely nose to tail through the first sector, but Vasserson still can't find his way through. In towards Villeneuve, shows the nose a little bit again, but Jorgensen has been just so solid here. Into Tosa, will we see a dive? Going to be a little bit too far back for that to happen.
Yeah, they're coming to an estimated lap and a half to go at this point of the racetrack. So at this point, you only have 1 or 2 chances if you're Vasserson. He's been having to check up each and every time out of Tamburello at this point. The question is going to be, will we try something different coming to the estimated final lap under 2 minutes on the clock?
Yeah, this is going to be the main battle that will feature here at the end of the race. Lasseback 15 seconds ahead of these guys, won't factor in unless he has a catastrophic final lap. I hope I'm not giving him the curse of the commentator right now. Meanwhile, Magnus Vasserson were riding on his roof here, coming towards the end of this particular lap number 14 of 15 here, in towards penultimate corner. Vasserson, how does he set it up here through the final corner to get that fantastic launch required? It's an okay one this time around. Runs to the start-finish line then for these guys. Vasserson trying to use as much of that slipstream as possible. He's shown he's not afraid to sling it around the outside here, but will he get the opportunity to do so here on this final lap? It looks like he is going to go for it, but Jorgensen, again, just so good on that inside compromise line. And now Sondergaard, now is his time to strike. We get reports that Bertelsen has had a bit of a moment, but we're still going to keep things here with this battle for those final couple of podium spots. And it's now Vasserson having to look ahead and behind. It looks like Sondergaard going to attempt to go down the inside, but not going to find any success here today inside this final lap, unless he can do something in the final 2/3 of the lap. We're going to go through Piratella then. Absolutely nose to tail in this particular train, down through Aqua Minerale. Still no opportunities, still no mistakes from anyone. You see Mikael Gard, he's trying to lock onto the back of Sondergaard. They're so close all together coming out of Aqua Minerale. You see Vasserson trying to scare Jorgensen into Variante Alta. They're still single file coming through there. A big amount of curb taken by Vasserson, but look at this. Lasseback 16 seconds ahead, if a little bit more. Lasseback, he's back on form, comes across the line for RS competition to win race number 2 in the Danish Esport Racing Championship at Imola. But there's been a big incident. Oh my word, it's for D2 and back. There's Jorgensen, there's Mikael Gard, and Marcus Jensen against the odds out of nowhere comes across the line to take P number 2 here today. P1, P2 for Marcus Jensen. But what happened there in the final couple of corners?
Well, Jorgensen took the outside line. The thing is, Vasserson and Sondergaard at the same time heading to the first Rivianza, tried to send it hard on the inside. Sondergaard hits them, collects Jorgensen. One car gets over the incident limit in Mikael Gard again, And Jensen just waltzes on through. Just absolute calamity to end this off.
Yeah, you have to pin that on Sondergaard there, as he'll head his way through. It was a big old dive into the first rabat, so we'll get another look at it. This is Marcus Jensen, who just avoided everything on the inside. You see the disqualification as well for Mikael Gard. That is just... He's had a day to forget, to say the least, right now. I'm not entirely sure how he actually got that, because it didn't look like anyone made contact with him. Oh, there we go. There's the contact that disqualified him. And you can see Marcus Jensen. He was right at the back of that train. But he ends up coming out on top.
Wow. All I can say is absolute stellar day for him, as well as last day back. Both of them swapping spots at the top of the board in 1 and 2. And in the end, both of them having the best points days they could possibly have for the most part.
Lasseback wins from Marcus Jensen. Mikael Sondergaard, I doubt he'll hold on to P3 with the stewards investigation going on right now. Magnus Vassson comes across in P4. Matthias Woodsko in P5. Matthias Jensen in P6. Fredrik Jorgensen lost out a lot in that. He comes across in P7. Andreas Joachimsen in P8, Stali Jankovic P9, Anton Gulish recovers to a P10 after a late race incident. We see Stefan Moller in P11, Ollie Oester finishes in P12, Kasper Stolze in P13, Martin Christiansen though, what could have been pole position, and then end of Villeneuve, he just hits a curb and spins. Nico Pedersen in P15, Christian Eriksson P16, Peter Bollingtoft in P17, Donnie Nielsen P18, Christian Hope P19, and Mike Mathiasen in P20, Justin.
Motorsport finishing 21st. Stefan Overgaard recovered a 22nd, but did have some trouble. Had some bumping and baiting for 23rd on back at one point at the start of the race. Bertelsen crashed coming towards the final lap or so to go, slamming hard into the inside wall into turn number 13, finishes in 23rd. Bollingtoft finished in 24th, with Andreas Mark in 25th. Nick Madsen, a minute 24 back in 26th, had to take his one available fast repair after crab walking his way to the pit lane. Mikael Gard doesn't make it to the finish. Bad luck and a bad day for him, 27th after reaching the incident limit with one turn to go. Jem Brinkback 2 laps down, 28th, Hartwig in 29th, and Thomas Hirson in 30th position.
And then further back, you do have your drivers that, well, still didn't finish this race. You see Brinkback, you see Hartwig, you see Hirson not ending up finishing this race. But the big story, though, Mikael Gard. Oh my words, it's just been a horrible 2 races for him. He disqualified in both of them, both instant limit related, and you see, in this particular race, just one corner to go, and he's finishing at the end of the lead lap.
That's the potential luck you can have, especially with potential attrition and over-aggression. That's why in terms of racing, you have to not just time up when you go for the move, but you also have to think about it from a racecraft perspective. Can I do it cleanly? Can I do it successfully? As well as, can I do it efficiently where I don't lose too much time and it takes multiple laps? But in the end, you have to remember, this is only the halfway point of the season. There's still 4 more rounds of action to go here, Connery.
First half of the season has been it has been Lasseback's, but the race 5 through 8, maybe a new challenger will rise to the occasion. That's going to be it for race number 2 here at Imola. Don't go away though, because we have the post-race show just after this. Please do not go away, as we'll discuss what has happened here over these 2 races at the famous Italian racetrack.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the post-race show here for round number 4 of the Danish Esport Racing Championship. One exciting 2 races that we've had here today. Marcus Jensen comes away with the race win in race number 1, but Lasse back absolute dominance in race number 2. Behind him, though, in that second race, it was basically all to play for, but a big incident into the final couple of corners of the race means that Marcus Jensen comes across the line to take second place. So it's a P1 and P2 for both Lasse back and Marcus Jensen here today. I'm Connery Maddock. I'm joined by Justin Prince to talk over what has happened here, but oh my word, you know, that is one of, or at least some of the best races that we've had here this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this during some of the breaks. Race number 1 seeing the greatest lead battle we've seen all season so far. Race number 2 seeing some of the craziest battling at the end of the race for position all season long. It's going to become the question, though, of how do these drivers continue to build on the momentum? How do they try and build off of the success and try and make sure in some cases to look past it? There is some chance of drivers being able to drop this round after some of the bad luck for drivers like Joachimsen, for drivers like Miguel Gard. But that puts a lot more extra pressure, Connery, on the rest of the calendar. Because if you have a similar round like today, you might not be able to recover for the championship.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that is certainly going to be playing on the mind of someone like Miguel Gard, who's just had probably the worst race you could possibly imagine in terms of results. You know, it's 2 TQs for him in this race, and the thing is, though, some people say, yeah, you know, the instant limit, blah blah blah. The thing is, as Kimi Räikkönen said that one time just in, it's the same for everyone, and if he can't keep himself below that limit, that's his problem.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to make sure, in a lot of the cases, you don't make contact with other drivers if you want to keep clear of the incidents. In some of the cases, it was tight quarters racing where it was door-to-door baiting to cause that sort of situation for some of the drivers. But now it's just a matter of look ahead and focus on the next round. We still don't know where we're going yet, though, Connery.
Yeah, we don't know what the track is going to be, and the drivers do not know what the track is going to be. But, of course, this is going to be all that we have time for here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. I've been Connery Maddock. That's been Justin Prince. We've had Hugo Luis pushing all the buttons behind the scenes as well. Thank you very much to Istvan Ballo for providing the track camera pack that we love to use here on Racesport TV. Live on the Esports Racing channel. Join us on the 29th of January for the first race of the second half of the season here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Where it's going to be, we don't know. But if it's anything like Imola, then you definitely want to tune in. Goodbye.